Did you know that the employment rate for people living with disability has not really changed in the last 30 years? The recent NDIS review report stated, and I quote, "Current approaches to disability employment are not working." 53% of people with disability are in our workforce, and that's compared to 84% of people who are not living with a disability. That gap of over 30% has been unchanged since 2003. I mean, seriously, what is going on? I'm Nicky Sloan, CEO of Community Industry Group, and I'm coming to you today from the beautiful lands of the Dharawal people. And this is Community Matters, the podcast where we explore community solutions with people who are making a difference in our community. And today I'm joined by Rod von Clark. Hi, Rod.
Hi, Nicky.
Rod is the CEO of the Flagstaff Group, a fabulous organisation employing many people with disability and making a real difference in our community.
Thanks, Nicky, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk about a subject that is we're definitely really passionate about. And those numbers that you just mentioned then, I really think they emphasise the overrepresentation of people with a disability on our unemployment numbers.
It's really quite shocking. I think we saw the NDIS come in. The most significant reform for people with disability in our country, but I would say the most innovative probably in the whole world.
Yeah.
So what are you seeing as a disability employment provider?
Well, I guess, when you really look at it, it is a complex issue. I think that statistic that, we were just talking about is actually a combination of a few different factors that really impact a person living with a disability and employment.
Because employment's so important. Our jobs are so much about who we are, what we do, who we socialise with, who we communicate with every day.
Yeah. Well, just go back to when you introduced me. You introduced me as the CEO of the Flagstaff Group. And I think there's a big part of our self-worth that is connected to our job and what we do each day. And I think it's also, you've got to think about, as I emphasise, it's not just what you take home in your pay packet and what you have in your pocket. It's about your self-worth, as into who you are, what you're contributing to the community, as into, I guess, it's always a bit of pride, that has in that when we complain about how we're paying our taxes, etc., like that. But to be able to be a contributor, having self-worth and knowing that you're actually, bringing something back to the community and you're not just taking. And I think that as being engaged in employment, it's really important to actually understand that. And I think it's like, when we talk about disability employment, it gets too complicated, as in we really got to broaden it, as in, you hear people talking about supported employment and talking about open employment and all these other barriers, as in for a person to engage into a job and as also get a career. But finally, as in one of the things that I really want to, share today is let's talk about fear. A lot of people, as in when they start to, look at engaging into work, there's other things that they got to be concerned about. They may need to ensure that their entitlements, as in under the disability support pension, as in to making sure that they have access to pharmaceutical medications, but also being able to ensure that they can get from A to B with transport support. And finally, as well, is a lot of people that are living with a disability, they want to get a job, but they also have a fear about what's that going to mean for their housing. Are they spent so much time and effort trying to get access to reasonable housing, and we've all heard about it in the media about that there is concerns and there is limitations to people accessing housing. So if they've worked hard, to actually have access to housing on a budget, they're going to make sure that if they get a job, that's not going to implement that and it's not going to impact that as well.
That's interesting. So you're saying that some people might actually not be pursuing employment because they're afraid of losing the benefits associated with their disability support pension or access to social housing?
That's correct. But I think it's the fear. As in, there's a lot of people that may be advocating the saying that if you do get a job, that this is going to be the risk that you're going to be facing. Whereas I believe there should be an emphasis as in education out there, as into you can have meaningful employment, but also get the support to make sure that your housing, as well as your access to, pharmaceutical and other entitlements under the disability support pension is not impacted.
And so this is the work that a disability support provider like yourself would be doing. It's not just providing a job and a workplace for people, but it's supporting them with all the other aspects of their lives as well.
100%. We look about what's important to us. The first thing is, we mentioned before, is about our employment, but it's also all those wraparound things that you have. Being able to live as independently as possible, having a roof over your head, being able to engaging in an inclusive social life as well. So as a enterprise such as the Flagstaff Group, we make sure that a person is supported to make sure they can engage in all those avenues and part of their life, so that they can, finish work on a Friday, be able to go home and then engage in an activity so that they can, come back to work on Monday and do what they value and know that they're valued as well.
I have to say, if ever you're feeling blue, the best place to go is to Flagstaff right on lunch break because people come out joyfully out of your workplace and they go and they share lunch, and it's so noisy, but it's really, really uplifting. I think it really just shows that I think there's perception about what disability employment looks like, and I would just want anyone to see how absolutely joyful that workplace is. Could you maybe talk, I think there's such misconceptions about what disability employment looks like, and I think a lot of people think back to the old sheltered workshop kind of days, but maybe you could explain a bit about disability employment and about open employment and how that, it seems to kind of be the gold standard that you get people into open employment, but it's not always the best place for people, is it?
No, and I think it's all about choice. We've been around for 60 years and, I've been with Flagstaff for just close of 9 of those 60 years. And that point you mentioned about, going to Flagstaff at lunchtime, when I come to work, I always go through our lunchroom because that is our why. And it's also, you mentioned about, when Flagstaff first started, it was a sheltered workshop, and then it became a disability enterprise. But now we consider ourselves an integrated employer.
Right.
I've got 451 employees, including myself, and we're all of the same value. We might have a number of our employees that also receive formal employment support under the NDIS, but everyone has the same support and everyone has the same value. And if somebody wants to develop and build their career and stay at Flagstaff, there's no ceiling. I've actually had people who've come up to me and said, Rod, one day I want your job. And there's no reason why they can't achieve it. I let them know that I probably want to be around for another 20 or so years before I retire. So hopefully they're not going to be, trying to tap me on the shoulder. But there's no reason why somebody cannot advance their career, receive the supports that they require, and don't feel that they have to leave an organisation such as Flagstaff to achieve open employment. It's great that if someone has the choice and they have the goals to work somewhere else, unlike a lot of other businesses, we see that as a realistic and a good milestone and a good goal to have, and we'll help them achieve that. But I think it's really important that when you do come to Flagstaff, my challenge for anyone is go, all right, you tell me who are the people who are getting supported under the NDIS, who are not receiving any formal supports, because we have a true integrated employment model, whereas everyone is working together on the same goal as making sure that as an organisation, as a business, we're sustainable and that everyone has the opportunity to be able to achieve their employment goals.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and well, you must be watching your back all the time. All these people wanting to come through. Could you maybe explain to people about how NDIS supports help people to come to work? I think a lot of people think that NDIS should be just about activities of daily living and social participation. But why is it really important that if people choose to do work, that they should still be able to access their NDIS supports to help them do that?
Well, that's a really good question, Nicky. And I think the important thing is it's about making sure that the support that a person receives is necessary and reasonable. So, for example, for an individual to be able to come to work and engage in meaningful employment, they may need a level of support for them to be able to engage in that employment. So the NDIS funding is not given to a group of people. It's actually connected to the individual support needs. So there might be some person that only needs to receive, roughly 10 minutes, every hour of formal support, and they'll receive that support at Flagstaff. Or there might be others that actually need to receive individual support and more intensive support for them to be able to engage in meaningful employment, but also for them to maintain that employment. Realistically, we got some people that are working at Flagstaff, and they're at their capacity now where they're receiving the level of support where they're now looking at, increasing their days, or they might be also looking at, I'm really enjoying what I'm doing, but I want to try something a little bit more challenging. So then we'll ramp up that support for that individual for them to be able to engage in those work-like activities and then to build their capacity. And that's a win-win for everybody, because if somebody is actually doing a job that receives better pay, and they also includes them to need to deliver tasks that have a higher skill level, we're going to make sure that they're supported to not only achieve that goal but also to maintain that. We've got individuals who have started with us as an entry-level work, and they're now doing work such as a delivery driver. And they've been able to achieve that goal, as in to reach that level through formal NDIS funded supports. However, they don't have to continue receiving that higher level. It can taper down or can taper back up, and it's always connected to what their support needs are at the time.
And we certainly have, we use Flagstaff for all of our printing, so we often get your delivery drivers through, and they just love their job.
Yeah, and
the interaction with all different people when you're delivering. You're meeting so many different people.
And I think that's really important as well, as in, and that's good feedback, and thank you for that. It's good to know that our guys are not only delivering the printing for the community industry group, but it's also, they understand good customer service, and that's a part of, what we deliver. And it's an expectation as well. As in, we might have someone who's living with autism, or we might have somebody that is, has other impairments, but they also have, an understanding of what the expectation of their job is. So we provide that support as well.
Yeah, I think that what you deliver is so much more than a job. All of those employability skills, and I know at your lovely facility there in Port Kembla, you have a road set up so people can learn about transport, how to get to work. Yeah,
and I think and that's a really good example, as in with transport, where only up until recently, probably people would have identified that, we had our large Greyhound buses, as in where we used to provide transport for our employees. And I had a look at them and I thought, that's a huge resource, as in that we're using, as in to provide transport for a lot of our employees. let's have a look at it as into, what's other ways that we can actually provide, capacity for people to be more independent. So we actually had a look at removing those buses, as in for providing that transport, but actually building our employees' capacity to be more independent, to use public transport, or to be more independent to get to or get home from work as well. So that's really been a good outcome. And on a positive note, we no longer need to have those two large Greyhound buses every day to provide transport to our employees.
And it's a skill that everybody needs, and it's a skill that the people that work with you will be able to integrate into their everyday life.
And I think it's like all of us, we were just speaking this morning about the rain and how we had to make adjustments to get here or get to work, as in, and for our employees and for everybody else we support, it's given them the skills to make those choices and to be able to get to A to B independently.
Yeah, fantastic. So you guys at Flagstaff are doing an amazing job. You provide really quality products. You have so many options. You've got your laundry, your print.
Yeah, we've also, we've got our recycling business. We do ground maintenance now. We do facilities services for a lot of other businesses out there. And the important thing as well is in going away from a ADE sheltered workshop model to an integrated employer, it's really important that our businesses are commercially viable. And the way that we are able to achieve that is making sure that, they are good, sound, well-run businesses. And, of course, we do get a lot of our success from the support from other businesses in the local area as well by using us. But also, the more work that we can do, that means there's more employment opportunities that we have. And a good example of that is in going back to, one of our drivers. He approached me, about 12 months ago, 18 months ago. He said, what, I want to be a driver. I want to, to be able to get my truck license. And I said to him, well, mate, I said, the first step on that is that you have to, sit and, be able to get your learner license and be able to, go through the process so that you can get your driver's license. And this young man, he actually, with the support from our employment support team, in his lunch break, he studied for his learner's license for his truck license. He got it. And then he went out there, he practiced, he got his truck license, and he is now one of our delivery drivers for our recycling business. And I was actually watching him go the other day, and I have to say he's probably one of our most safety conscious person that has pride in his vehicle, which shows that, not only is he being able to build that skill set up, but he has ownership as well. And it goes back to that self-worth as an individual. And the feedback that we get from the drivers like him is not only about the tasks that they're doing, but it's a highlight of the person's day when they actually come to the site and they deliver or they do a pickup and they do it with a smile and they actually have that pride in the job that they do.
So, Rod, you talked about the fear that people have about maybe losing some of the things that they've fought hard for, their DSP, their housing, their benefits, etc. And it sounds like we've got all of the elements there. We've got the NDIS now, we've got quality employers, we've got a general willingness and an understanding about the importance of employment. How do we bring it together to address the fact that despite all of that, we still have 30% difference in employability rates?
Well, I think it's not just about the percentage of people that are unemployed. We can also talk about people who are underemployed as well.
True.
There was, a lot of work has been done by Fair Work to ensure there's a new award for people living with a disability working for businesses such as Flagstaff, the Support Employment Services Award. And I had a young man, fantastic outcome where he got a significant pay rise. And for you and I'm sure I can speak for myself. If I get a significant pay rise, I'm high five and it's great. His first initial response was fear, going back to what I said before. And I was taken back, and I sat down with him and I said, mate, what's wrong? And he goes, what's going to happen with my house? And I'll be honest, I didn't have the answer at the time. And he goes, I take all this medication, and he goes, am I going to lose that ability? I said, mate, I don't have the answer right now, but I'll go and I'll find out. In this same period of time, people have been in his ear, and their response, you'll have to reduce your days. Mm-hmm. This is a young man who has pride. He's working at Flagstaff 5 days a week, and the advice that he received was, you have to reduce your days. That wasn't from us. And I'm thankful, and I can say that he's working with us for 5 days a week. We were able to ensure that, to get the advice that his housing, his pharmaceutical benefits, as well as any transport benefits weren't going to be impacted. However, we want to make sure that stays like that in the future. A person who's living with a disability, who's receiving benefits from the disability support pension, should not have to worry about employment impacting those benefits. And I think it's really important that we work with government to ensure that that message is clear. You can get a job, you can work as many days as you want, and that your benefits, your entitlements due to the disability that you're living with is not going to be impacted. And if we can do that, I'm sure there's going to be more people who are going to be confident to go out there and get a job, knowing that their access to medications, their access to public housing, access to subsidised transport is not going to be impacted. And if we can achieve that, I think that's a good start.
Absolutely. This might be a really good thing to address we have an inquiry at the moment into disability employment, and this might be a really good issue to raise.
Yep.
And something for government to start to think about.
100%.
If anybody wanted to get involved in the work that you do or wanted in some way to support Flagstaff, what's the best way for them to be involved?
Well, we pride ourselves as being an integrated employer, and we think that we've got a really good model. But, going back to your statistic, I would love to be able to offer employment opportunities for all those other people that are currently unemployed. But we need the help for other businesses. We need to be able to work with other businesses and organisations to provide employment opportunities for a person living with a disability. However, we also identify that, it's not just about supporting the individual with a disability. We want to provide support for business owners, frontline workers, anyone that wants to give an opportunity for a person with a disability to gain meaningful employment. We'll work with them at Flagstaff to be able to provide a safe, meaningful workplace for a person with a disability. So they can just either contact us through our website, or they can also call us directly, speak to us about any of our programs, our employment support, so that we can work with them to provide meaningful employment for a person with a disability.
Fantastic. And also, if you need any printing, they do great printing. They do all of our printing at Community Industry Group, laundry services, shredding, recycling.
Ground maintenance, we'll mow your lawns, we'll be able to do facility services, we do cleaning. Basically, if there's something that can, take away those jobs that you've been putting off, I'm sure that there's something that we can do for you at Flagstaff.
Fantastic. So finally, Rod, this podcast is called Community Matters. Could you tell us a little bit about a person or people in the community that matter to you?
Yeah, I was actually put some thought to this, and there's an individual that I'd really like to highlight, as in that, she is somebody that's always providing positive service and is a fine example of someone who is actually living with a impairment, but is also achieving fantastic things in our community. And her name is Rebecca Lachlan, which I'm sure a lot of people would already know. I'm seeing everyone's nodding, as in who know Beck. And I guess I first met her around about 8 years ago when we were looking at, really highlighting the need to have a accessible train station at Unanderra. And she led that, and she didn't give up, and it took 8 years, and we got a lift at Unanderra. And I got to know her a bit better. She's an author. She's written a book about her own experience of living with stroke. She basically had a stroke at the age of 26, but she didn't, just lay down and say that I'm going to be a victim of this and I'm just going to need support. She actually stood up and went, you know what, I'm going to beat this. And she's received numerous awards. She had the Australia Day Mayor's Award. She also, I actually wrote down a couple of awards because I thought I didn't want to miss out on any of them. But yeah, she also got the Stroke Courage Award. But it's also Wollongong Woman of the Year.
Yeah.
So they're just 3 awards at the top of my head. And she's, works for us at Flagstaff as well, as in she's one of the facilitators on a program that we deliver called We Belong. But I have to share her time throughout the week because she's always engaging with so many different projects and activities. Like, she's even a facilitator herself, and I'm really conscious that she'll be listening to this and she'll probably give me some feedback of what I could improve on, because she's a presenter on Fox Radio on Ability Matters as well. So, yeah, definitely somebody that I would love to, do a shout out and highlight is Rebecca Lachlan. She's a fantastic individual.
We are huge fans of Beck and her work, and actually really proud that we nominated Beck for the Courage Award, the National Stroke Awards. I think she is absolutely incredible example.
Agreed.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. Thank you so much, Rod, for sharing today about the importance of employment for people with disability and the need to be much more inclusive as a society and as employers of people with disability, because we have to raise that bar. It has to be higher than 30% difference between the two groups, people with disability and people not living with disability. 30% is not right.
Oh, thanks, Nicky. And I totally agree. People living with disability and people of all abilities are overrepresented when we talk about unemployment numbers. And I think, let's knock down those silos and as a community, as in start providing meaningful employment opportunities for a person that is living with a disability. And I think if we can start it here in the Illawarra and be the leaders, I think that'll be a fantastic start.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. This has been Community Matters, the podcast that explores community solutions with people who are making a difference. Please like this episode, share it, leave us a review, and stay tuned next time as we explore more solutions in our community.